Welcome to the They to We Leadership Podcast, where we unpack the hard truths about management. Many professionals excel at the work itself, but when they step into management, everything changes. Each episode, we explore why so many struggle with that shift and how reconnecting with your people, your purpose, and your identity as a manager can make all the difference. I want you to finish the sentence. Most managers fail because, and then there's dots. And I said, finish the sentence that you would tell this young sergeant. Most managers fail basically to lead because list the reason. And I said, I am requiring every one of you to finish the sentence on what wisdom would you pass down to this young supervisor. And I let them work on it about 30 seconds, and they all write. And when I did this the first time, I was up in the Northwest. There were 90 people in the class. In the beginning of class, they had all said that 90% of managers are failing. 100% of the managers are in the class. And I went through that slide, the last thing before lunch, and I said, fill out the end of the sentence. How would you end the sentence? And I let them go to lunch, and I walked around the classroom during lunch, and I was laughing hysterically because I had found the reason everybody loves leadership training. They got the reasons right. The reasons are all the same. They were not trained. They're afraid. They work for ineffective managers, so they don't have good modeling, all that. But what I was looking for was not the reason. I was looking for the first word that they would choose to finish their answer, the pronoun that they would choose. And 100% of them had started their explanation with the pronoun they. Why is that significant? Because all of them are saying, I'm not an ineffective manager. It is those other people, which is kind of similar to what everybody was saying in the breaks that I wish so-and-so was here. So the reason leadership training fails is because no one sees themselves as needing it. They see that they're not the problem, everybody else is. And why they love leadership training is because it affirms what they already know when they came to this class, that they're surrounded by idiots. But they don't see that they're also one of those idiots. And as long as a man or woman doesn't think they are failing as a leader, they're not going to take this material and apply it to themselves. They're just going to use it to think about the failure of all these men and women around them, because in their mind, they're doing fine. And, I joked that my father, when he undid his belt, used to say, there ain't going to be no revival if there ain't no confession going on. If you don't take ownership that you need help, then we've got a major problem here. And that's why leadership training fails, because everybody shows up thinking, well, maybe I can learn a few new skills, but overall, I'm doing pretty good. Everybody thinks they're doing fine when they come to the leadership training. Why? Because the agency doesn't normally tell them that they're failing when they are failing. One of the most interesting case studies that I do is I was brought in lateral entry to an agency as a captain, and one of my responsibilities was internal affairs. And I was notified that a lieutenant had committed a grievous act by intimidating a female sergeant, cleaned his fingernails in her face, telling her he didn't like women, he didn't like women cops, and hell, if a woman was going to tell a man what to do. And I tell this story, and of course you can watch the nonverbals of all the class on this. And I tell them that I open an investigation on this person. And I had people come to my office and tell me that this guy was terrible. He always did this. He was known to hate women. He hated inmates. You couldn't leave an inmate unsupervised around him. And then when I started my investigation, one of the things I did was, and this is the question I always ask the class when I teach leadership, I said, I pulled out his personnel file. And what did I find in his personnel file? Every man and woman in that class, in every state I've ever taught, which is all 50, as soon as I ask that question, they all answer, you found nothing. Even though his behavior was terrible, everybody knew he was doing this, no one held him accountable. And one of the reasons that people come to class thinking they're leaders is because no one back at the agency before they came to the training told them you're failing. Everybody hates working for you. You're abusive. You are a coward. You never make a decision. Because we don't tell people the truth, they think everybody else is the problem. And why leadership training doesn't work is because of that failure to hold people accountable in the agency before we bring them to the training. And the second reason is we don't do leadership training that is training. It's an educational program. Unlike the firearms, I like the emergency vehicle operation and defensive tactics and all that. We don't ask them to perform this. And as a result of that, they come through a class, sit in there, listen to this, and go back thinking they're doing fine because they agreed with everything in the class, even though back at the agency, everybody sees they're not doing it. And why they answer they is because they're self-deceived. They don't see themselves accurately. And that is why leadership training fails, because of the deceitfulness of our own human hearts to see that everybody is a problem but me. Why? Because that's the default human position. We all think it's everybody else's fault, not ours. And operationally, we had men and women who held us accountable. But when we are promoted, men and women no longer feel comfortable to tell us the truth. And as a result of that, we lose that reality in our lives because people don't tell us the truth anymore. The answer's not they, it's we. We all do this. But as long as you think it's a they issue and you're pointing your finger at everybody but yourself, you will not change because, as they say in the 4 levels of learning, you are unconsciously incompetent. You don't know you're failing. I want to give you just an idea to think about, and then we're going to close this out. I went and did a program for a federal agency, and I noticed that when I was doing the class, they would pull out people individually during the class and bring them back about 30 minutes to an hour later. And I'd never seen that before. And so I asked the course coordinator, I said, why do you keep pulling people out? He said, because we pull them out to go over the 360s. I said, what's a 360? He said, before they're allowed to come to the course, every man and woman that works beside them, under them, and over them has to fill out an anonymous evaluation of their performance. If they communicate, if they have the courage to make decisions, if they still do the mission, on and on and on. It is basically an evaluation filled out by everyone around us, not just our superior, but the men and women who work with us every day. I said, seriously? They said, yeah, you can't come to the course unless your cohorts fill out this evaluation form, usually anonymously, before you come to the course. I said, so what are they being pulled out for? He said, we go over the results of what other people have seen them do rather than what they think they're doing. And he grinned and said, watch their faces when they come back. They are shocked about the reality of how they're really doing in the workplace. And I asked him, I said, why do you do that? He said, because now they'll listen to what we're trying to teach this week. It is a gotcha moment that shows them they are failing in certain areas, and we're going to show them what to do instead. Think about that. that is the solution to people coming to class thinking they're not the problem is while they are in the agency working with us every day, we are truthful with them that they're being cowards, they're being too confrontational, they don't communicate, they don't do this, they don't do that. As long as we don't tell them that, the old expression, ignorance is bliss, they will come to a leadership class and not see that they're the problem. And that's why leadership training fails. One, it's not training, it's an educational program. And number two, because we're not holding people accountable as supervisors and managers in the agency. Thanks for joining us on the They to We Leadership podcast. If today's episode helped you think differently about management, take a moment to reflect and then apply it. Because real leadership isn't what you say, it's what you do next. And the real enemy is our pride and blindness on how we are really doing. Only with the help of others can we truly make an impact on those around us.